presentation. These guys are chomping at the bit to get a hold of you and present. I will have to say so far that this is one of the word I used was dynamic teams that I've had the opportunity to work with. They were really, really fun, so I'm glad that they get the opportunity to present to you guys. So, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Jason. Well, I want to introduce our team. I wanted to let you know that this has been a 3-year process for us. We've been going back and forth we did a lot of PDCAs during this A3. So to my right, I have Andrew Medlin, Mike McHugh, Max Grover, Michael French, Tricia Bell, Pam Delcourt, Lil Morin, and on the phone with us is Joan Johnson. So this is, just to give you a little bit of background, most of us are on the Geiger Star Committee. This process actually started with a few other members, but we've had new members that have joined us since then. And we just felt that it was time to kind of take a look at the whole Way to Go program. And the decision was made that we thought it was still a good program, but it just needed some refreshing. Somebody just today actually said that, you know, as long as we've had this program, it's still meaningful to people. So just that comment that I got today made me feel that this is still a program that's well received. It just needed some refresh. It needed a facelift. So that's what we kind of been doing over the last few years. We're going to start off with Tricia that's going to talk to you a little bit about the current condition.
Current condition?
Yes, what the current condition
yes.
was.
Not a lot of people were using the Way to Go recognition program, and one of our team members didn't even know what she was supposed to do with those teeny tiny little coins that were on her balloon. I was going to say umbrella. Balloon. And I'm just going to stick this in there as a little side note. One of my team members at the other end was recognized for a Way to Go and didn't get her balloon right away, and she was upset that she didn't get her balloon. So, and people see the balloons and they do like the balloons. So, yeah, it was weird. She was like, oh, I got my Way to Go. Where's my balloon? I don't know. So I'm going to, who was next? Oh, Lil.
All right, so some of the before conditions and the problems were a PDF interactive form didn't always work properly, and then a Word program was made up by a couple people, and that didn't always work properly either for everyone.
And that, so Lil's going to explain the problems, and I'm going to jump in each time and go over the effects of those. So, struggles with the form and the attempt to replace it with Word is that we identified there was just a lot of frustration in the users, which discouraged them from actually submitting Way to Go's even when they associates had earned one.
And then the helium.
There was a concern at the time that obviously there's a cost involved with purchasing helium, and that there was also news reports of shortages of helium due to the fact it is a finite resource. So that was something we had looked into and considered during this as well.
And manual acknowledgements were required.
So the manual acknowledgements created an issue because it delayed it. So just like the story was just presented about getting the balloon right away, this was causing delays in even getting the information out to the associate and their manager that they had been recognized.
Several tokens were needed to redeem rewards. Actually, some items were many tokens that were needed to redeem.
Yeah, and we found that was very demotivating for associates because one, when they would get their first one, they'd go to look at it and realize how many it was going to take. And then two, sometimes by the time they even amassed enough to get something they wanted was gone, or there was just nothing they liked. And it suddenly took away from a lot of that instant, linking the good deed with a reward right away.
And there was a separate token system that was needed for external associates.
So by decoupling the two systems, it just kind of made it awkward, and it was very time intensive for HR to track the second one, and it was problematic in that regard.
Then we had balloon assembly issues.
Which is an awkward way of saying that we rely on just HR to produce the balloons for everybody and now it's a self-service station.
And the Way to Go delivery process was also an issue.
Yeah, which once again goes back to the manual process of it and delaying it. Once again, having a bottleneck by relying on one person to funnel all those things. And then the main takeaway from that, like I already said, is you're not getting that instant link between doing something that deserves a way to go and rewarding them right away. Sometimes, several days, if not longer, before they're recognized. Joan, you're up next.
Okay, good afternoon. This is Joan, and I'm talking about the target conditions for the program. So we had 4 main objectives in our target conditions. The first was that we wanted to be able to increase usage of the program, and we targeted an increase of 15% or more. We wanted to be able to make it easy to use the program, make it accessible, and which would also help the usage. The program we felt was underutilized, and we wanted to make it more user-friendly so that people would feel more recognized and rewarded through the program, essentially more exposure. And then our second objective was to make the Way to Go program more accessible. So we wanted to find ways to make it easier for people to find, easier to use, so that it was readily available to them. It's something that they would think about more often, so that people would participate more. We wanted to extend accessibility to both staff and sales partners, so that more people overall would have access. Our third objective was to make the rewards more achievable and motivating. We wanted to make it easier for people to actually earn something, so it didn't take so long, so that people would feel more reinforced and rewarded, which would be more motivating for them. Our fourth objective was we also wanted to make the program easier for human resources to manage. So we wanted it to be easier to organize, easier to keep track. We wanted it to be simple for collecting the Way to Go points, distributing the appropriate recognition, and rewarding people with the prizes, so just overall easier for human resources to manage. And I'll go ahead and pass it off to Pam and Mike.
Thank you. So Mike, Max, and I will be going over the after conditions, the countermeasures, and the results. So May 2015, we created the Way to Go page and an app feed on GNet. Unfortunately, it did not work as anticipated. You can only send to multiple users, but all they could see was just one line item, so they couldn't see all the information. January 2016, January 9th, a survey went out to everyone, basically going over to see what the usage is and see basically to try to get a better gauge as how it was being used by the employees. The overwhelming result was that the people were not using the tokens in the Geiger store for multiple reasons. I think Andrew went over some. So on January 2018, the new Way to Go form was launched on GNet. So what happens is the system sends an email to the recipient as well as HR, and it can be viewed now on GNet for all to see. And I will hand this over to Mike.
Thank you, Pamela.
You're welcome.
One of the other countermeasures was making this an online form. While this did increase the number of Way to Go's, it limited, the sales partners weren't able to access this. The increased amount, though, that we show, for 2016 and 17, we averaged about 217 Way to Go forms. So far in 2018, there's been 318 Way to Go forms given. So it's definitely increased the number of Way to Go's acknowledging. As touched on a little bit, the self-service balloon station. This way you're not reliant on one person or one department. It seems like Maria Hoffman was the one running around the building all the time, handing out Way to Go balloons. But now, with this station, anyone can go in and take care of that themselves. Also, removing the tokens and doing raffles. As Tricia noted a little bit, there was an employee that had these tokens in her desk and didn't know what to do with them. This way, there's no need for the tokens. You you get a quicker benefit by doing the raffles, and people seem to like the Amazon gift cards, or whatever is better anyway. So those were a few countermeasures. Now I will turn it over to Maxwell.
Okay, so we worked with IT, with the network operations team, with the forum on GNet. There was issues at first because we're all different departments, obviously. We needed to put every associate under one section as well, so that when it was on GNet, everyone could see each other and everyone could see each other's way to goes. Now we have the tracking for all associates standardized, so we won't have to manually track people who have or are outside of the office, and the people inside the office won't have to keep track of their tokens. Past tokens, if you've earned them over the past few years and you've never had enough to save up for a certain item, you can still use those in the store while we have supplies, as well as you can turn them into Maria and you'll be entered into the monthly drawings. And then we had a new associate come into IT, and what we do when we have a new developer is we like to introduce them to different sections of the company and have them do some smaller projects as training. So they work on P+, they might in the future do some Geiger.com stuff, and one of the things they did is develop an app in P+, for the Way to Go form for HR, and this allowed for all internal associates as well as all of our sales reps to give Way to Go in the same place. And now there's no manual tracking except for the rest of the year of the tokens being turned in. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. French for indicators and schedule.
Thanks, Mr. Cooper. So I feel like my big excitement was spoiled a few minutes ago. I had I was going to do the big ending and I was going to tell you the exciting numbers, and somebody jumped the gun. But I'm going to do it anyway.
We didn't do percentages though.
I brought those little things that you pull and there's like confetti, but I'm not going to use them now. It's not worth it. So we talked a little bit about this, but we started this in 2015, and we sort of had the trial and error throughout 2015. And we did the survey in 2016. We got that info back from the users, but the form was created last year, but really the main implementation has been done this year, both in January with GNet and then again obviously with P+. And so the numbers that we had, the 216 is a average from 2016 to 2017. So that was, we were giving out roughly 216 Way to Goes. And our target was to increase that by 15. And you are not going to believe this, you've never heard this before ever, but we're up to currently 318, which is a 47% increase. So it's amazing. So we kind of blew past our target, and really it's a kind of indication of kind of renewed interest in this program.
Actually,
cool.
we gave out two more. There's 320 of them given out.
You know, you just can't stop stepping on my.
Go ahead, though, Mike.
We're gonna. No, I hear this is breaking news. We're up to 320. I'm gonna take one, and we're gonna go back to 319 because I'm gonna give a negative Way to Go.
I didn't hear about that on the floor.
Yeah, no, that's actually, if you flip it over, there's a whole negative section. It's the upside down over here. Yeah, but that's, we welcome your questions and comments. Should you have any?
I just want to congratulate this team for working through this arduous program. It was huge. It's something I think that you might think is a small thing when you start out, and then you realize that there are all these connections, and if we do this, what about that? And I think it just got bigger and bigger, and it got set aside for a while, and so to see the team finally come together and finish it off and be able to put this to bed, I think is worthy of congratulations for your tenacity and perseverance and all of that, for those of you who've been on since the beginning. And
Well, Nancy scheduled a meeting, we got here and she locked the door and said, until we get this done.
I had 3 people that need to be certified, this was it.
I want to personally say something. I can, for this program, I think it's wonderful. I personally am not someone who's very comfortable being recognized for anything. That's just not me. I've never been that way, but I can see how important this is for others. I hear it on the floor, I see it on the floor, and as Tricia said, even a balloon makes a
a bigger impact in a new building compared
Yes.
to the old
Yeah, you're right,
Definitely.
yep.
one, where I can see, over the crest line, I can see
Well, it's
total
like
care.
the top picture here is,
Yeah.
I mean, you can cut on the floor and see all the balloons. It's pretty
And I'll tell you, when I took that, I was just compelled because I saw all the balloons and the good work, so I just was compelled to take a picture of it. And this wasn't even, had to do anything to do with the team, I was just like, wow, look at the great stuff happening over there.
Well, in addition to your external, your product, which is the report. By the way, hi Joe, this is Joanne. I just think this is the coolest team ever. Because you have Pam, St. Trish, and you've got Joan here on the floor, and you get Mike that works at home also. But this is about as cross-functional as you get from.
Jason said dysfunctional.
I think it had to be something, I don't know. I don't know anything dysfunctional about it, but it's just very cool to see how different parts of the business all got together for this project. And equally, it's very cool to see you look like this professional newscast. Because your presentation itself, by having Joan out in the field and literally on the phone and everything, it makes for a fabulous impression in addition to the product. So it makes me feel all good inside.
And that's done by design, just so you know. These are members of the Geiger Star Committee, so once every quarter, this group gets together to select our Geiger Stars. And we want it to be a cross-functional team, because I think it's important, because I may see a way to go come by, and I have no idea what that person does. So we try to touch every area of the organization, so somebody knows something about that and can bring more value to the discussion on when we're making a selection for Geiger Stars. So they put a lot of thought and energy when doing that. I know it's kind of an aside from this project, but this team really does take that role very seriously when making those selections.
Equally, I understand, as much as Joan loves to do presentations, it's not easy to do a presentation. She loves to do presentations. She's
At least she's on
fantastic.
the phone.
She's fantastic. But it's not easy, it's just not easy to do presentations, so, equally, way to go, way to go.
I love how you automated a completely manual process where there was paper and handoffs and approvals and management and had to do stuff and made it, and I really like how you directed it towards the P Plus apps, because that's really where we want folks to start going. So you actually use software that was very appropriate.
And it's a paper saver too. You used to have the white copy and the yellow copy, and as left-handed writer, get ink all down my arm.
And we're continuing, always looking to continuously improve. I actually this is new to the team, breaking news. I've got a request today that, sometimes somebody wants to offer the way to go, wants to share the recognition with somebody else, not just the person's management team, because the system actually, when that way to go is given, it triggers 4 or 5 different emails. So the person getting it gets the email saying congratulations. The person who gave it gets an email saying, don't forget to go to HR, get a balloon, and bring it to them and recognize them in person. And then another email goes to our Way to Go team in HR that says, can you forward a copy of this to that person's chain of command, so that way the person's chain of command is always aware of the Way to Goes that are being given. So this request came in today to say, well, there's somebody else I'd like to know that's not in that chain of command. Can we add a carbon copies as an FYI? So we're in the process of seeing if IT can add a CC section as an optional, so that way, if we want to give one and we want Jean to know about it, so you can get a copy of that and everything. So I think it's a constant, yeah.
This will never end.
I know, once I'm in on something, I keep going back. Anyway, but it's pretty slick.
But I think that's classic continuous improvement, it's just always looking at your process and saying, how can it get better, or taking feedback from your customers, classic, and turning that into a further improvement. So it's been an excellent, long-time project, I know. I appreciate Nancy for, I know I've been bugging her probably since 2015 to keep at it and hang in there and see if we can do something that makes sense and is manageable. So it's great that this is
That's all it says.
Come on.
Do I wanna open it?
Again, fishing.
I love that it's you that pointed that out.
Well, we hope it
Right.
generates more interest and more recognition. I think that's the intent is, because I think, small of a, or as trite as it may seem, I think it's important to people to feel recognized and, I think the more that we can utilize the program. And so just in case you're not aware, so what happens is once a month, we take the names of everybody who received the Way to Go and we put it into a drawing, and 5 people are given a $25 gift card. So it's every month, whoever gets the Way to Go gets a chance to get the gift card. So I think it's a little bit more exciting than, I gotta collect tokens for 3 years before I can get a t-shirt or that type of thing. I think it, at the time it was, was well intended, but I think it just needed some refreshing and some changes and re-energize the program and all that, so.
It's also easier to budget for now, because we know it's gonna be, 5 gift cards every quarter, and that's it. And you can give out
Right.
6,000 Way to Goes in a year, but you're still, which is our 2019 target is 6,000.
Actually, 6,250.
I'm just gonna make a note to do another negative.
And the last thing I would like to comment on is, if you weren't aware, you can see everybody who got a Way to Go. So if you go to the P Plus app, there's a little link in the top that says responses. So you can see as a manager, if you want to see who got a Way to Go in my department, you can look at everybody who's gotten one. It's by month, and you can export it out. I believe everybody, I don't know if everybody can export it or just HR can, I'm not sure, but
Is that
anyway,
everybody across the board or per department?
organizationally.
That's good.
So I would go in, generally when I go to GNET, I make it a point to go do that every week, because there aren't that many every week. And one of the things I like is to see, because I get notified if someone gets one that's in my area, but I like to see ones that my folks have given out. And it's like, oh, that was really nice, and they really help. And sometimes I'll follow up, or I'll do an additional thank you, and I really love the visibility. Because you see the balloons, you used to see the balloons, you're like, I wonder
But you
what
don't
they
know
did.
why.
I never really
Yeah.
knew. Sometimes you ask, but sometimes you don't,
And I think when you see why people are giving out Way to Go's, you're like, oh, somebody did something even better than that for me, I should get one. You know what I mean? I think it just generates, the intent is to hopefully make it infectious and other people will see it and want to do it.
well, it gives visibility, and Joan probably was a great representation, because most of my folks aren't here. So the balloons didn't really do
Right.
anything, so they may have gotten something and people didn't know, so now they can give them accolades just like everybody else, so I love that.
All right. Anybody, any other questions? All right. So we have 3 people getting a certification as a result of this presentation. I would love to be able to do this in front of everybody, and I know some people don't like to be celebrated, but Pam, you're going to get celebrated. Or you can. There we are.
And Delport accomplishment.
Careful your new nameplate and your new badger in there.
I like what
And
you
can
did
make
there.
sure that works for you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We also have somebody else who always loves to be on the spotlight over here, so Lil. I know you work very hard at it. Thank you. And then, should I let one of the other mics present to Mike? And just no, and Mike McHugh is also getting his. Sorry about that. Thanks very much. I think that's the most certifications I've given out in one section, so that is absolutely wonderful. So congratulations, everybody.